At 30,000 feet, a small plane cruised peacefully through the clouds. On board were 5 passengers, an old man, a schoolboy, a lawyer, a doctor, and a community service worker. Suddenly, disaster struck. The pilot suffered a fatal stroke, slumping over the controls as the plane began its terrifying descent. Panic filled the cabin as the passengers scrambled to find parachutes. But there was a problem. Only 4 parachutes for the 5 of them. The community service worker was the first to act. "I help protect vulnerable children and support families in crisis. The world needs me," she declared, grabbing a parachute and leaping out without a second thought. The lawyer stepped forward next, adjusting his tie. "I'm one of the sharpest minds in the legal field. My knowledge and wit make me invaluable." He snatched a bag and jumped. The doctor didn't hesitate. "I save lives every day. It's only right I save my own now." With that, he took a parachute and dived out. Only the old man and the schoolboy remained as the plane spiraled closer to the earth. The old man looked at the boy with kind, tired eyes. "Son, I've lived a long life. You have so much ahead of you. Take the last parachute." But the schoolboy smiled and shook his head. "It's okay, sir. We can both go." The old man blinked in confusion. "But there's only 1 parachute left." The boy chuckled. "Nope, there are still 2. That brilliant lawyer, he grabbed my school backpack." A state trooper sat in his patrol car on the edge of the highway, radar gun in hand, waiting to catch speeding drivers. But instead of a blur racing past, he noticed an old sedan creeping along at a painfully slow 22 miles per hour. Frowning, the officer muttered to himself, "Driving that slow is just as dangerous as speeding." He flipped on his lights and pulled the car over. As he approached the vehicle, he couldn't help but notice its passengers, 5 elderly ladies, 2 up front and 3 in the back, wide-eyed, pale as ghosts, and gripping the seats like they were on a roller coaster. The driver, a petite woman with perfectly curled white hair, rolled down her window. "Officer, I don't understand. I wasn't speeding. Why did you pull me over?" The trooper gave a reassuring smile. "Ma'am, you were going 22 miles per hour. She beamed with pride. "Exactly. I was following the speed limit." The trooper chuckled softly, trying to keep a straight face. "Ma'am, that wasn't the speed limit. That's the route number, Route 22. Her eyes widened in realization. "Oh my, I had no idea. Thank you, officer." He tipped his hat. "No problem. Just be careful. Going too slow can be dangerous, too." As he turned to leave, he glanced back at the pale-faced passengers. "Before I go, ma'am, is everyone in the car okay? They look a bit shaken." The old woman leaned closer, lowered her voice, and whispered, "Oh, they'll be fine in a minute. We just got off Route 142. A blonde, eager to earn some extra cash, decided to try her hand at odd jobs. Armed with determination and a bright smile, she wandered into a wealthy neighborhood, knocking on doors and offering her services. At the first house, a well-dressed man answered. "Hi, I'm doing handyman work around the neighborhood. Do you have any jobs I could help with?" she asked cheerfully. The man thought for a moment and then said, "Well, actually, yes. You could paint my porch. It wraps all the way around the house." The blonde nodded enthusiastically. "Great! How about $50? "Deal," the man replied. "The paint and brushes are in the garage. Help yourself." As he closed the door, his wife, who had overheard the conversation, raised an eyebrow. "Does she realize the porch goes all the way around the house? That's a big job for $50. The man chuckled. "She should. She was standing on it." A couple of hours later, the doorbell rang. The blonde stood there, a few specks of paint on her clothes, but a big grin on her face. "All done," she announced, "and I had some paint left over, so I gave it 2 coats. The man was surprised, but impressed. "Wow, that was fast. Let me grab your $50. As he handed her the cash, the blonde added with a satisfied smile, "Oh, and by the way, it's not a Porsche, it's a Ferrari." A blonde was over the moon when she finally bought her first brand-new car. Shiny, spotless, and perfect. She couldn't wait to show it off to her 2 blonde roommates. But on the way home from the dealership, disaster struck. A sudden hailstorm pelted her car, leaving it covered in dents. Frustrated and near tears, she parked the damaged car in the driveway and called the dealership's service department. "Hi, I just bought a car from you guys, but it got caught in a hailstorm and now it's all dented. What should I do?" The service chief, known for his sense of humor, decided to have a little fun. "Well, if you want a quick DIY fix, wait until the car cools down, then go to the tailpipe and blow into it as hard as you can. The air pressure will pop the dents right out." "Really? That sounds easy. Thanks so much." A half hour later, her two roommates came home to find her kneeling behind the car, red-faced, huffing and puffing into the tailpipe. One of them blinked in confusion. "What are you doing?" She stood up, catching her breath. "I'm blowing into the tailpipe to pop out the dents. The service guy said it would work, but it's not." Her roommate rolled her eyes. "Ugh, you dummy. You have to roll up the windows first." An experienced older nurse was chatting with a younger, fresh-faced nurse during their shift. The older nurse leaned in and whispered, "Did you see the man in room 14? He has Tom tattooed on his package." The younger nurse, a little amused, replied with a smirk, "It says Tomorrowland." Two bowling teams, one of all blondes and the other all brunettes, decided to charter a double-decker bus for a weekend bowling tournament in London. Spirits were high as they boarded the bus, ready for a fun-filled trip. The brunettes took seats on the lower deck, laughing, chatting, and even starting an impromptu sing-along. Snacks were passed around, and the atmosphere was full of excitement. But after a while, one of the brunettes noticed something odd. "Hey, has anyone heard anything from the blondes upstairs? It's been awfully quiet." Curious, she climbed the stairs to the upper deck. When she reached the top, she was stunned. All the blondes were sitting stiffly in their seats, eyes wide with fear, hands gripping the seats in front of them with white-knuckled intensity. No one was talking, smiling, or even moving. "What the heck is going on up here?" the brunette asked. "We're having a blast downstairs." One of the blondes, her face pale and trembling, turned her head slowly and whispered, "Yeah, but you guys have a driver." A man strolled into a car dealership one afternoon, greeted warmly by an eager salesman. "Good afternoon, sir. Looking for something special today?" the salesman asked. "Yeah," the man replied. "I'm here to buy a car for my wife." "Fantastic. Let's find the perfect one." The salesman led him to a shiny sedan, and they took it out for a test drive. As they cruised down the road, the salesman smiled and said, "This car is incredibly quiet, sir. The ride is smooth, calm, and relaxing. Perfect for peaceful drives." The man shook his head. "Nope, I'm buying this for my wife, and let's just say, calm and quiet aren't exactly her strong suits." The salesman chuckled nervously, but quickly adapted. "All right, then. Maybe something with a bit more personality." He led the man to a sleek sports car. "This one's quick, agile, and has a real sense of style. It turns heads everywhere it goes." The man sighed. "Yeah, my wife isn't really the sleek or agile type either." Now, visibly flustered, the salesman scratched his head, then brightened with an idea. He led the man to a sturdy, practical SUV. "Sir, this car has been incredibly popular. Nearly every man who's come in here has taken it for a test drive, especially when buying for their wives." The man's eyes lit up. "Sold!" One sunny afternoon, a woman was cruising down the interstate when suddenly, thump, 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 her car lurched to the side with a flat tire. She carefully guided it onto the shoulder, sighed, and got out to assess the damage. With no spare tire and traffic zooming past, she opened the trunk, but instead of pulling out the usual roadside gear, she grabbed two folded cardboard cutouts. Calmly, she set them up behind her car, facing the oncoming traffic. The cardboard men, both lifelike and disturbingly detailed, wore trench coats, left wide open, revealing that they were completely naked underneath. As drivers approached, horns blared, brakes screeched, and cars began to slow down, some even swerving into other lanes. Within minutes, traffic was backed up for miles. Soon enough, a patrol car arrived, lights flashing. The officer stormed over, clearly fuming. "Ma'am, what on earth is going on here?" he barked. The woman, still calm, gestured to her car. "Well, officer, I got a flat tire." The officer's face reddened. "And what about these?" He pointed angrily at the two obscene cardboard figures causing the highway chaos. Why would you put something like that on the road? She smiled sweetly. Oh, those! They're my emergency flashers. Two blondes walked out of a restaurant, laughing and chatting, when one suddenly froze in her tracks. Oh, no! She gasped, pointing at their car. We locked the keys inside. Both of them rushed over to the car, peering through the window at the keys sitting mockingly on the front seat. What are we gonna do? The first blonde fretted. Should we get a coat hanger and try to pick the lock? The second blonde shook her head. No way. People will think we're trying to steal the car. The first one thought for a moment. Okay, what if we grab a knife and cut the rubber around the window to pop the lock? Are you crazy? The second blonde replied. Then people will just think we're too dumb to use a coat hanger. They both stood there, staring helplessly at the locked car, when the first blonde suddenly glanced up at the sky. Dark clouds were gathering, and raindrops had just started to fall. We need to figure this out fast, she said urgently. It's starting to rain, and the sunroof is still open. A man was circling the parking lot at the local mall, growing more frustrated by the minute. Every row he turned down was packed, with not a single empty spot in sight. After what felt like an eternity, he sighed and looked up to the sky. Lord, he began to pray aloud, if you help me find a parking space, I swear I'll give up drinking, start going to Mass every Sunday, and be the best person I can be. No sooner had the words left his mouth than the clouds parted, and a brilliant beam of sunlight illuminated an empty parking spot just a few feet away. The man's eyes widened in disbelief. He pulled in quickly, parked, and then glanced upward again. Never mind, Lord, he said casually, unbuckling his seatbelt. Found one myself.